2:30 p.m., July 11th, 1979, a suburban Miami shopping mall. Two men walk into a liquor store carrying submachine guns. What happens in the next 90 seconds will change Miami forever. The weapons erupt. Customers scream. German Jimenez Paneso, a cocaine dealer from Medellin, collapses in a pool of blood beside his bodyguard. The shooters don't run. They walk calmly to their van, spraying the parking lot with covering fire. The vehicle is painted with cheerful letters, "Happy Time Complete Party Supply." Inside, it's a war wagon, bulletproof panels, gun racks, ammunition belts. This isn't gang violence. This is something new, organized, military, terrifying. And it's the work of a woman who weighs 95 pounds, stands barely 5 feet tall, and will become known as the cocaine godmother. Her name is Griselda Blanco, and she's about to turn Miami into a battlefield. To understand how Griselda Blanco became America's first female drug lord, you have to understand where she came from. Medellin, Colombia, 1943. The slums that cling to the mountainside like barnacles on a ship. No running water, no electricity. Families of 8 sleeping in single rooms with dirt floors. Griselda grows up in a neighborhood where survival is the only moral law that matters. Her mother is a prostitute. Her father is absent. By age 11, according to multiple sources, including court testimony and investigative reporting, she's already involved in violent crime. Some accounts suggest she participated in a kidnapping that ended in murder. Whether this specific incident is true or mythology built around her later reputation, what's documented is this. Griselda Blanco learned early that violence was currency. By her teens, she's working as a pickpocket and a prostitute herself. Then she meets Carlos Trujillo, a small-time document forger and smuggler. They marry. He introduces her to a more sophisticated form of crime: smuggling. Not cocaine yet. In the 1960s, it's mostly contraband goods, fake papers, stolen merchandise moving between Colombia and the United States. But Griselda is watching, learning. She sees the infrastructure, the border vulnerabilities, the networks of corrupt officials, and she sees something else: opportunity. Cocaine is starting to flow north. The demand in American cities is growing. The Medellin trafficking organizations are still primitive, mules carrying kilos in suitcases, losing product to seizures, operating without real distribution networks. Griselda realizes something the men around her haven't yet grasped. The future isn't in Colombia. It's in controlling the American side of the supply chain. In the early 1970s, Griselda, Carlos, and their children moved to Queens, New York. On paper, they're immigrants starting over. In reality, they're establishing the first cell of what will become a cocaine distribution empire. And this is where Griselda's genius reveals itself. She doesn't copy the male traffickers. She invents something new: custom-made lingerie with hidden compartments sewn into the fabric, designed to hold cocaine against a woman's body in ways that drug-sniffing dogs and pat-downs won't detect. False-bottom suitcases built by craftsmen in Medellin, sophisticated enough to fool X-ray machines of the era. And most importantly, she recruits women, grandmothers, young mothers with children, people who don't fit the profile of what customs agents are looking for. Gender becomes camouflage. The assumption that women, especially older women, especially women traveling with children, aren't dangerous becomes Griselda's competitive advantage. By the mid-1970s, her New York operation is moving significant weight, but Griselda has a problem: Carlos. He's having an affair. In most marriages, this would end in divorce. In Griselda's world, betrayal is a capital offense. According to investigators, she has her husband's mistress murdered. Not quietly, not discreetly. The woman is shot multiple times in front of witnesses. The message is clear: what's mine stays mine. Carlos himself will disappear years later, his body never found. Law enforcement believes Griselda ordered that killing, too. She's no longer just a trafficker. She's eliminating obstacles with the cold efficiency of a corporate restructuring. But New York is becoming dangerous. The NYPD is watching. Rivals are pushing back. And Griselda is thinking bigger. She needs a city with better geography, weaker law enforcement, a place where cocaine can flow like water. She needs Miami. 1. Griselda Blanco arrives in South Florida with her 3 sons and a suitcase. To neighbors, she's just another immigrant, a single mother trying to make it in America. But within months, she's rebuilding her distribution network on a scale that dwarfs what she had in New York. And the timing is perfect. Miami in the late 70s is undergoing a transformation. The city is a natural smuggling hub, 90 miles from Cuba, close to Colombia, with thousands of miles of coastline, and the Everglades providing endless drop zones. The Cuban exile community has created sophisticated financial networks that can move money invisibly, and critically, the drug market itself is shifting. Marijuana is being replaced by cocaine as the high-profit import. Cocaine is compact, easy to transport, and the profit margins are astronomical. A kilo that costs $1,500 in Colombia sells for $50,000 in Miami. The economics are irresistible. Then comes the Mariel boat lift. April 1980. Fidel Castro opens Cuba's ports and allows over 125,000 Cubans to flee to Florida. Most are ordinary people seeking freedom, but hidden among them are convicts and mentally ill patients that Castro deliberately empties from his prisons. Suddenly, Miami is flooded with desperate people, many with criminal backgrounds and no prospects. For traffickers like Griselda, it's a recruiting bonanza. Enforcers, mules, muscle, all available cheap, and local law enforcement is overwhelmed. The DEA has maybe 50 agents in South Florida trying to monitor an entire region. The Coast Guard is understaffed. Corruption is easy when budgets are tight and the cartels are offering bribes that exceed an officer's annual salary. Miami becomes the perfect storm. Demand, supply routes, financial infrastructure, and law enforcement stretch too thin to respond. Griselda doesn't just capitalize on these conditions, she weaponizes them. Her operation in Miami is built on the same principles that worked in New York, but scaled up. The lingerie smuggling continues, the female mules, the false-bottom suitcases. But now she's moving hundreds of kilos per month, then thousands. At its peak, intelligence analysts estimate her organization is generating $80 million monthly. Not yearly, monthly. That's close to $1 billion a year in 1980 money. The cocaine moves through a network of stash houses across Miami, then gets distributed to cities throughout the United States: New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston. She's not just a Miami trafficker. She's built the first truly national cocaine distribution network. And to protect it, she imports something else from Colombia: sicarios, professional killers. In Colombia, political violence between guerrillas, paramilitaries, and cartels has created a generation of young men who kill for a living. Griselda brings them to Miami. She pays them salaries, provides them with weapons, vehicles, safe houses, and she introduces them to a tactic borrowed from Colombian guerrilla warfare: the motorcycle assassination. 2 men on a motorcycle. The passenger carries a submachine gun or a pistol. They pull alongside a car in traffic, execute the target, and disappear into the city before police can respond. It's fast, it's efficient, and it's terrifying. This isn't mob violence with its codes and negotiations. This is something colder. In Colombia, this method is political. In Miami, Griselda turns it into a business tool. Competitors are eliminated. Informants are silenced. Even minor disrespect can result in death. One story, widely reported by law enforcement, claims she ordered a man killed because he made a crude remark about her in a bar. Whether that specific incident is true or apocryphal, what's documented is this: Griselda Blanco does not tolerate threats, real or perceived. Which brings us back to Dadeland Mall. German Jimenez Paneso is not a random victim. He's a rival trafficker who's been cutting into Griselda's territory. Intelligence suggests he may have been involved in the kidnapping of one of her associates. For Griselda, this is personal and strategic. The hit needs to send a message, not just to Paneso, but to every other trafficker in Miami. So she orders something unprecedented: a public execution in broad daylight at a shopping mall. The 2 gunmen who walk into Crown Liquors that July afternoon are professionals. They fire with precision. Paneso and his bodyguard die instantly. The shooters exit calmly, spraying covering fire to keep bystanders down. They climb into the Happy Time van, a vehicle that's been modified with bulletproof panels and fitted with gun racks like a military armory. They drive away. Police find the van abandoned later that day, wiped clean of prints. The Dadeland massacre becomes the public face of Miami's cocaine wars. Before this, the violence was mostly contained to the drug world: dealers killing dealers in back alleys and warehouses. But this is suburban terror. Shoppers hiding behind cars while submachine guns rattle. Blood on the liquor store floor. A war wagon disguised as a party supply van. The city realizes something has changed. Miami isn't just a smuggling hub anymore. It's a war zone. And the violence is just beginning. Over the next 3 years, Miami's murder rate explodes. In 1979, there are 349 murders. By 1981, That number climbs to 621. Roughly half are drug-related. The Dade County morgue can't keep up. They rent refrigerated trucks from Burger King to store the overflow of bodies. Detectives are solving less than 10% of homicides. Many victims are never identified. They're found in canals, in the Everglades, in car trunks at the airport. Some are beheaded, some are dismembered. The cocaine cowboys, as the media will later call them, are rewriting the rules of urban violence in America. And Griselda Blanco is at the center of it. Law enforcement eventually attributes approximately 40 murders directly to her organization. But some investigators believe the real number is closer to 200 when you include victims killed by associates, enforcers, and people caught in crossfire. She operates from a series of safe houses, never staying in one place long. Paranoia consumes her. She trusts almost no one. Associates who fail her disappear. She allegedly tests loyalty by ordering hits on people close to her subordinates, watching to see if they hesitate. One DEA agent who tracked her for years described her as the most ruthless person I ever investigated. Not because she committed violence herself, though some accounts claim she did, but because she ordered it with the detachment of someone approving office supplies. Her 3 sons become both her greatest vulnerability and her enforcers. She raises them in the business. They see the money, the power, the fear she commands, and they learn the lesson she learned in the Medellin slums. Well, violence is currency, but sons are liabilities. They draw attention. They make mistakes. And as the bodies pile up in Miami, federal law enforcement finally begins to take the cocaine wars seriously. The DEA expands its Miami field office. They bring in agents from across the country. Prosecutors start building RICO cases, conspiracy charges that can net entire organizations instead of individual dealers. And they start hearing one name over and over in wiretaps and informant interviews: Griselda, La Madrina, the Godmother. The investigation is slow. Griselda is careful. She uses cutouts, intermediaries between her and the street-level dealers. She communicates in code. She moves constantly. But in 1984, the net starts closing. One of her sons is arrested. Then another associate flips, offering testimony in exchange for witness protection. Griselda realizes Miami is no longer safe. She flees to California, settling in Irvine under an alias. For a brief moment, she tries to disappear into suburban anonymity, a middle-aged woman living quietly in Orange County. But the DEA hasn't stopped looking. On February 17, 1985, they find her. Agents surround her home. She's arrested without incident. Inside, they find a small arsenal of weapons and documentation linking her to the Miami distribution network. The trial is a spectacle. Prosecutors lay out the scope of her empire: the murders, the cocaine shipments, the money laundering. Griselda sits quietly, occasionally smiling at witnesses. She's convicted on federal drug conspiracy charges and sentenced to more than a decade in prison. But prosecutors aren't done. They charge her with 3 murders in Miami-Dade, including involvement in the Dadeland shooting. This trial is harder. Witnesses are terrified. Some recant. Others disappear. One key witness is murdered before he can testify. But in 1994, Griselda is convicted again and sentenced to 20 years. She'll remain in federal custody until 2004, serving nearly 2 decades behind bars. But prison doesn't erase her legend. In Colombia, she's still feared. Stories circulate about her connections, her hidden money, her willingness to order hits from behind bars. When she's finally released and deported back to Medellin in 2004, she tries to live quietly. The city has changed. The cartels have evolved. Pablo Escobar, who she once knew, has been dead for over a decade. The cocaine trade continues, but the power structures have shifted. Griselda is a relic, an aging woman living off past wealth, surrounded by family but isolated from the networks she once controlled. Still, old habits die hard. She's paranoid. She rarely leaves her neighborhood. When she does, she's careful, but not careful enough. September 3, 2012, a Monday afternoon. Griselda walks out of a butcher shop in Medellin carrying meat for dinner. She's 69 years old. A motorcycle pulls up alongside her. The passenger raises a pistol. 2 shots to the head. She's dead before she hits the pavement. The killers disappear into traffic, never identified, never caught. The method is instantly recognizable: the motorcycle assassination. The technique Griselda herself pioneered 40 years earlier in Miami. The innovation that terrorized a city and changed American drug violence forever. Now it's been used against her. Some call it poetic justice. Others see it as proof that violence only compounds itself. The woman who introduced the motorcycle hit to American soil dies by motorcycle hit on Colombian soil. The circle closes. So what do we take from the story of Griselda Blanco? She was responsible for hundreds of deaths. She flooded American cities with cocaine. She turned Miami into a war zone for 3 years, overwhelming hospitals and morgues, traumatizing a generation of residents who lived through the violence. The cocaine cowboys era left scars on South Florida that are still visible today. Entire neighborhoods were destabilized. Law enforcement had to be rebuilt from the ground up after corruption investigations. Families lost sons, daughters, fathers, mothers to the drug trade. Some as dealers, some as users, some simply as bystanders caught in crossfire. And yet decades later, the drug war continues. Miami is no longer the primary cocaine gateway. That's shifted to Mexico and the southwestern border. But the violence hasn't stopped. It's just moved. The cartels have evolved, become more sophisticated, more brutal. The demand for cocaine in America hasn't diminished. Griselda Blanco built an empire by recognizing that gender was a weapon, that violence was a language, and that America's appetite for cocaine was insatiable. She died by the very method she invented, killed by a system of violence she helped create. Did her death bring justice? Did it solve anything? Or was it just another body added to the decades-long tally of the drug war? A war with no clear winners, only survivors and ghosts. Share your thoughts below.